Hello, this is Christine Brown. You're watching Black Tea News. Hello. Welcome to Black Tea News. I'm your host, Christine Barr, and today we're going to be talking about the Supreme Court case that's obviously at the Supreme Court. There is a website designer, once again, in Colorado. Jack Phillips is in Colorado, who's the baker who was sued, targeted by the state for not making a same-sex wedding cake. Well, there's a couple, and he had a very narrow ruling in his favor some years ago, maybe like a decade now, but which he's back in court, which I mentioned yesterday, because he wouldn't make a transition cake. Just there's always like further left to go, I suppose. And so there was a very narrow ruling on his behalf. So it just really kicked the can further down the line. So now the can has returned. So a website designer is expanding their business and they want to do weddings, but they just want to make it clear that they don't want to have to be compelled to make them for same-sex weddings. So it's before the Supreme Court. The court is more right than it was back in that time. And since it was a kick the can, maybe they'll have a more definitive sort of answer than they did before. So there's a lot of people concerned about it on the left, and it seems pretty easy the way that it should go, which is why some folks are really reaching. Ketanji Brown Jackson has had some really silly hypotheticals, I suppose, along with other people. So we're gonna show some of those examples today. Also, there was a business in Virginia, which I think is funny. This is a court kind of happening around the same time, that refused to do business with a group that was like a Christian organization that, focused on local politics. And so they were going to meet at this restaurant/bar to celebrate their win. And some of the employees, I guess, Googled them and didn't like what they stood for. And so they was like, well, we're not serving you. And they let them know like a little bit before they were supposed to actually meet. So they didn't do business with them. So just interesting how everyone's thoughts on these matters are supposed to work. And also, of course, we have runoff day in Georgia. We'll see how that turns out. I do have another like montage. Well, it's not another montage, but I would show a snippet of a montage that Woke Preacher Clips put together. If you don't follow that account and you care about those sorts of things, you should follow Woke Preacher Clips. I didn't watch the whole 16-minute segment. I've only watched like the 2 minutes I'm going to rewatch with you. But at one point my mouth did drop. So I'm like, this is worth showing my audience. So before I jump into everything, I want to encourage you guys to go to blacktnews.com, check out different content on my website, different videos, different articles. I wrote an article, basically a bit what we talked about yesterday with Herschel Walker and Warnock and the churches that clearly have like conservative leanings in some stuff, but are still so gung-ho on voting Democrat. And I mean, it's not perplexing because I understand it's just really out of habit for the most part. Habit, and people say just repeat rhetoric. And in some of the examples we watched the other day, it was just rhetoric on top of rhetoric on top of rhetoric. And if people aren't just actually looking at the person and be like, this policy, be like, hey, I probably shouldn't vote for this person, and regardless of whether they have an R or D next to their name. If they're just used to voting one particular way, that's just how a lot of people are going to do, unfortunately. And there was a time when I had family members who had to wake up from that, and I know other people who had to wake up from that and break away. And I hope that the Black community in general can break away sooner rather than later. But it is fascinating that the Black church is militantly pro-Democrat, yet they don't get any of this similar funk that white evangelicals get. But if they start waking up and saying, you know what, it doesn't really make sense to vote for people like Warnock when they actually go vote for things that don't jive with my beliefs and would make it harder for me to exercise my religion, then you'd see the left turn on them really, really quick and try to silence and silence and neuter the church to a point where they definitely don't have to worry about them. Or they'll just find other groups to accommodate and leave the Black vote alone. But they can't do that right now. So anyway, can't afford to. Check out different things on my website. Check out different merch that we have on the website, like the Denounce White Supremacy, Defeat Joe Biden with a list of the racist stuff that he says on the back. We got the I'm Not the Victim You're Looking For. We got the You Are Not That Special shirts. I also got them in cute little mugs as well. So there's all kinds of things you guys can get at the website. Also, I do create books. I do write books. I have lots of books myself, actually, 15 that are published. So if you guys want to get some good children's books for your kids for Christmas, go ahead and get those at, if you go to blacktnews.com and go to the merchandise section, there is a banner that'll take you to my book website, but you can just search my stuff on Amazon and I should pop right up. And I also write for, adults as well. Let me show you. That's my baby right there. When people are like, what's your favorite? It's hard to pick favorites, but this is, you won't read anything quite like it. So, and it's really good, especially the sequel, but the first one's really good. But you write and you keep writing and you get better. So, great series to check out, historical fiction fantasy there. So check out what I got. Also got one nonfiction book as of right now, but I know you guys are awaiting when you can pre-order this baby, coming soon. So just go to the website, find all the goodies there. Okay, well, you guys know that I like to start with something humorous. So I found this meme from Grand Old Memes, and $10 billion that were stolen at FTX. You got the government looking, $2.2 trillion that disappeared at the Pentagon. Government looking, your $600 transaction. Oh, government telescope. What is that? Microscope, whatever it is. So yeah. They have some weird priorities, but taking from you, but they use a lot of that money from Mr. Sam Bankman-Fried or Freed. He paid a lot to Democrats and stuff. So I don't think, and I've said this online, that, well, I don't know if I'm gonna go ahead and say, like, I don't think anything's gonna happen to him, but I think it's clear from his behavior and how many interviews he's doing that he doesn't think that anything's going to happen to him. Why would you do so many interviews if you thought that you were going to be arrested and tried and put yourself in such incriminating situations with what you might say? I mean, so he must just looks like he's doing PR damage rather than focusing on whether or not he's going to go to jail. And he's doing a lot of interviews. So I think he thinks that he's pretty safe. Maybe he's a little worried, but he's mulling things over or smoothing things over. I don't think that he thinks that he's going to jail. But to all of you who have at least $600 in your, have at any point in time throughout the year had $600 in your not Mevo, is it Mevo? No, that's a camera. Oh, Venmo or your Cash App or something. Just make sure you have your I's and your T's crossed and all that good stuff, because they did hire 87,000 IRS agents. So they're not doing that just to solely go after Elon Musk or something like that. They're going for everybody. And you know what? Obama and Biden, when Obama was the president, he did weaponize the IRS. Now, you never found anything that really traced all the way back to Obama to the very tippity top. And maybe he didn't need to tell people to like discriminate against conservatives or something. But there was a big IRS scandal. Some people think that the only scandal the Obama administration had was wearing a tan suit, but that's absolutely silly. Um, Hello to the comments. Watching from Minnesota there. It's chilly there. It feels okay here in Michigan. It's not too bad. There's a slight chill, but it's not. It's you don't even have to wear a heavy winter coat right now. So I thank you guys for watching. For everyone who shares, who likes, who comments, all that stuff does really help. I thank you guys for watching the show back later. I know some people are at work, getting off work, but there's plenty of people who also watch Black Tea News later. So um very much appreciate all that. And if you do want to support Black Tea News, you can go to blacktnews.com/donate. Appreciate you guys so much. Okay, so let's move on into the story. So voting is, going on. We will know tonight who will be the winner of the runoff. Just historically kind of speaking, in these types of situations, if someone has to run a runoff and they're the incumbent and they couldn't like get it done the first time, it doesn't normally bode well for them. So going with that vein, maybe Herschel Walker pulls it off. On the other hand, I don't know, a lot of Trump candidates didn't do very well, and you say, no, there's a ton of people he endorsed that got elected. Well, he picked a lot of people also who are going to get elected pretty much anyway. But Kemp isn't on the ballot, and he couldn't, pull him over before, but he is out there campaigning for him. There's people who are, he's a very flawed candidate, and I've said that many times. However, people do trust, and if you do watch different interviews with people, the people who intend to vote for Herschel Walker are taking emotion out of it, and they believe that he will vote along with their values and the things that they want done. So, of course, they're going to vote for him rather than Warnock. I mean, it's the same reason that people at the end of the day in Pennsylvania decided to go ahead and vote for Fetterman, even though you're like, this guy can't speak. He's like not well. Like his family is immoral. His campaign is immoral. Why are they doing this? And at the end of the day, people wanted to check the box for him because we are very, very tribal in who we vote for right now. And you got to be an exceptionally terrible candidate for people to normally not vote with their party lines. And Fetterman was and is an exceptionally terrible candidate. But Oz had issues as well. One of them that's really big is that he didn't live in the state. People do not forget that. So I already mentioned the other day that there are people who are considering not or threatening that they would not vote for Herschel Walker because, or thought people shouldn't, to sever the Trump connection. That's not a good idea. That's not a good idea ultimately, and it will act as a stronger check if he is elected tonight, but we shall see. But let's watch this 2-minute montage. You guys can go to YouTube to watch a full like 16-minute, but this is like a reaction video to woke preachers reacting to the midterm reelection results and the runoff results. So I've only seen this snippet of it. I haven't seen the whole one, but at one point my mouth did drop. That's why I'm gonna like split the screen. I don't know if I'll have another reaction, but because I'm already like prepared with this, I might pause it or have commentary. But yeah, the kind of stuff people were saying was just wild. Just absolutely wild.
Text this morning when Gideon finally gets an encounter with God, his first conversation to God was, why is their situation the way it is? And everybody should be able to explain why the world is the way. Listen, Stacey Abrams did not win the governorship in Georgia. It's not because she wasn't a good candidate. It's not because she wasn't smart. It's not because she was some kind of left-wing nut, a communist. She lost the election because white people don't normally vote for black people.
So that's when I was watching it, and my mouth just dropped to say such a ridiculous thing, because one, she wasn't a good candidate. Um, if someone loses, people do run like repeatedly for races until they win. Like Brenda Lawrence, who's my congressperson right now, she's not running for reelection. Well, she didn't run for reelection. We had a redistrict, so the 14th is disappearing, and I'm actually like in the 11th now. How they redistricted or whatever, but she ran a couple of times. Actually, the year that she won, I ran against her, but it was like it was a special circumstance where I was appointed because someone had to drop out of the race, and so I ran for like a month, maybe 2 months. I can't remember, but it's an 80-20 district. Like I ran the best race that I could for the short amount of time in a district where I wasn't going to win. But that year she actually won. She actually beat me. But anyway, she ran a couple times for that position. And she was so confident, as soon as she won the primary, she didn't show up at anything else. Like, we were supposed to have a debate. She didn't show up. Like, it was like a League of Women Voters things, maybe, and which League of Women Voters is like so slanted to the left. So they were complaining because she wouldn't show up to anything after she won the primary, but that's just how the district was. So sometimes you have to run repeatedly. However, Abrams lost the governor's race, and they decided to run her again. And Beto lost like 3 big elections now, but they decided to run again. And they keep running because, she probably thought she had a pretty good shot to win this time around. I don't know. Beto's probably running because there's so much money involved. Just be frank. He raised a lot of money. People send money from all over the country for him, for Stacey Abrams. There's big money to be made in politics. But no, she wasn't a good candidate. And she is a left-wing nut. She is. I mean, if you have like no restrictions on abortion, that's I'm sorry, that's so far removed from reality. It's so extreme. People want to make it less extreme, but it's extreme. And people in these, we talked yesterday about this, people don't go to these southern states so they can be taxed more money. She wasn't a good candidate, and she was left wing. But for him to say that the reason why she lost is because white people don't want to vote for black people, knowing good and well that people are voting for Warnock in droves, is pretty astounding. And that Warnock is currently the senator. That's pretty wild to me. And that so many people voted for Obama back in the day. A lot of white people voted for Obama. And you know what? He couldn't have won if a lot of white people didn't vote for Obama, right? And there's a lot of white people who would love to vote for other folks as well, who are black. But to just throw out the racism charge there is pretty amazing. And you know what else is fascinating? The choice between the Senate candidates is 2 black men. The Republicans didn't pick a white person in the primary or whatever. There's a black man versus another black. They're going to have a black senator. But Stacey Abrams lost because they didn't want to vote for a black person? Really? Okay.
Oh, y'all don't want to talk in here. They'll go to your rap concert. They'll go to your boxing matches. They'll watch you shoot baskets. They'll even watch you hit a golf ball. But when it comes to church and when it comes to them sitting under you, they have a problem with that.
And Reverend Al Sharpton reminds us, you may call Stacey a loser, you may dismiss her, but every time you look at a John Ossoff in office, and every time you look at a Joe Biden in the presidency, and every time you think about a Reverend Warnock in the runoff, you are looking at the results of the hard work and labor of Stacey Abrams. I'm telling you, there are no losers when you're doing God's work.
In the state of Georgia.
Yeah, Joe Biden's really doing God's work. Okay.
That Stacey calls home. There are too many individuals who look at the color of her skin. Too many people that still look at her gender and decide for themselves that she is not worthy of being put on to the pedestal of that state. Even though you and I look at her and see someone like a queen, majestic and proud and powerful and intelligent and possessing wisdom, other folks refuse to see the beauty of who she truly is. She's not the only person who has ever been overlooked or ever been cast down in society. Because there was a woman here in the 9th chapter of the gospel according to Matthew who was disregarded and disrespected by society. She had some money but spent it all up trying to heal this issue of blood.
Stacey Abrams may not have won the election, but Stacey Abrams won my respect.
Looked like I saw a blue wave sweep across, not a red wave, but a blue wave.
Not in your state, sir. Well, I actually don't know if that last guy's from Georgia. I just know that this is all yeah, maybe so, because this is all reaction to Georgia. Anyway, Woke Preacher Clips put this together, and if you're not following him on Twitter, if you care about like progressive woke content and mocking that or commentating on it, he's a good person to follow, and he has a whole 16-minute segment of that. Maybe I'll do a full react to it later or something, but just wanted to at least show you guys that again, I'm just floored that people still want to go with the racism excuse. But speaking of racism, before we move on, I want to play something that Mika on the Morning Joe talked about and said about Herschel Walker. It's just really amazing. And before I play it, I want to show you guys this poster from like the 1850s. I think it was like the 1850s. Yeah, I just wanted to show you this, you know, and I just wanted to ask you guys if there's any of like the same sort of vibes coming from Mika. Just want to know if, because I saw that earlier. I mean, I've seen it before, but someone like posted on Twitter, and after I saw this, I immediately thought back to that poster.
Herschel Walker, Charlie, is unfit for the job, and it's embarrassing. It seems a little racist and condescending in a million different ways. He is unmoored. He seems to have a lot of problems, but just intellectually, he's clearly not even remotely close to being up for the job, completely unfit. But I would argue at this point that any Republican that can't say what Donald Trump said is wrong, and I stand up for American values and for our democracy and our Constitution, and I reject what Donald Trump said, and I reject the values and the comments that he is bringing to the table, and I reject him as a candidate. If they can't do that, they are equally as unfit as Herschel Walker. So
I want to remind everyone that she was just on a panel with Al Sharpton, who said some anti-Semitic stuff and done some stuff in the past. So and he's I don't know if he still has his own show, but they've given him his own show. So I don't really want to play the whataboutism game, but you know, some people don't want to take any criticism from like Republicans and Trump, etc., when they're aware of that the Democrats are like talking out of their butts. And I'm well aware that they are, but I just wanted to point that out. Back to her beginning comments. How can she, what's racist about Herschel Walker running? Like, what does she even mean by that? What does she even mean by that? And it's amazing because they didn't have any sort of comments about really, or at least I don't remember her going that hard with like Fetterman, who was having a very rough time articulating, speaking, addressing the issues at all, period. But after, you know, he had his stroke before the actual primary. So he could have dropped out, and they could have had another Democrat in that spot. Now, he ended up winning, and he is going to the Senate, and people campaign hard for him. And it was uncomfortable to watch. It was uncomfortable, you know, seeing him be so impaired. And everyone just trying to just drag him across the finish line. And I'm like, your wife is trash. Your staff is trash. Everybody is trash. Give yourself and your body time to heal. But they just wanted the Democrat there. So I've said it many a times. I don't think Herschel Walker should have been the candidate. He does have a lot of like issues in his past. He isn't the best speaker out there or anything like that. He has surprised, I think, quite a few folks during the campaign, like with the debate, for example. And he must have had a fantastic coach, but yeah, but the way that she ranted like that, the way that she ranted was just insane. And what is racist about him running? Like I'm just going to play that beginning really quick.
Herschel Walker, Charlie, is unfit for the job, and it's embarrassing. It seems a little racist and condescending in a million different ways.
How is it racist and condescending in a million different ways? I don't understand. I don't understand. I'm just gonna go back to that there and and move on. And move on. Those are just the vibes I got from Mika there. Let's move on. Okay, so there's a big court case going on right now with the Supreme Court. So there's a Colorado website designer, goes back to Colorado, and she's before the Supreme Court because she has a business and she doesn't want to make websites for same-sex weddings. And so the way that people who are against her are coming up with such strange, absurd analogies that I'm like, you guys just don't have anything, do you? So here's I start with this segment from CNN. Let's start from this. You know what? I'm going to first play this little snippet from this interview from Fox from the actual lawyer from Alliance Freedom Foundation, I think, is the group representing her, and also the client.
The argument that's being made by the other side is that when you offer services, you have to offer them to all, to everyone. You heard what the ACLU attorney there was saying. Tell me what that violates for you, Lori.
I want to create unique, one-of-a-kind expression and artwork, and I want to design websites, wedding websites specifically, that are consistent with my faith. But the state of Colorado is compelling and controlling my speech, chilling it, and forcing me to communicate a message through my custom, unique artwork. That violates the core of who I am. And at the core of this case is the right for all to speak freely. And that protects not only myself, protects the LGBT web designer who should not be forced to create custom artwork that opposes same-sex marriage. The right to speak freely is guaranteed to each and every one of us, and a win for me is a win for everybody.
So, Kristen, along the way in this case, there was an argument that was made that because her content is unique, she is creating sort of a monopoly, and she's not allowing this person who wants to have a same-sex marriage website access to that monopoly. What do you say to that element of this case, to that argument?
Well, that would turn the First Amendment on its head. That would mean that every single one of us can be forced to express the government's message. What's important here is that Colorado even agrees that Ms. Smith serves all people. She does serve everyone. She has clients who identify as LGBT, and she serves them. And as the court many times today mentioned, her decisions turn on what the message is and not who the person is. And we all want that freedom, whether we're a Democrat publicist and don't want to write for a Republican, or a pro-abortion photographer and don't want to have to film or photograph a pro-life rally.
So I make I make websites. I made my own. I made other stuff. I've been paid to make websites before. I make graphic designs. I make logos and flyers, and I design all my book covers, and I do videos. I've done campaign videos for people. all commercials, all kinds of stuff. And I don't want to be compelled to do something that I don't want to do, something that I disagree with. And someone making custom websites is different than someone, like, if you have a platform like Wix or something like Squarespace or something like WordPress, where people go on the site and they build everything themselves, and someone just gives you the tools and you are the one who creatively puts something together. That's not the same thing than someone, even if you give them what to say and the art or whatever, you still have to like artistically put those things together. And I don't understand what's hard to grasp for some of these people who are asking these questions. Now, if you don't do anything creative, perhaps it's does it register and it can't jive with your head. But people, there's going to be some really interesting comparisons that I'm gonna show you guys. But also want to say I've heard people make the argument before gay marriage was legal and or the definition was expanded to include same-sex marriage, I guess we'll say. People argue, and I thought interestingly that marriage being the definition with just a man and a woman isn't it does discriminate, I guess, in a way, in this, but in the sense that you can't have 3 people, you can't have 4 people, whatever. But as far as discriminating against someone who identifies as gay or whatever, no, it's marriage is between a man and a woman, and whether I'm gay or not, I can't, if I don't want to participate in what marriage was defined as being a man and a woman, it applies to me the same way that it would apply to someone who may have the same sex attraction. And I watched is it Ryan T. Anderson? I think, I'm not sure if that's his first name. But I did quote him in my long article that I wrote like last week too. But his lecture on marriage that he did a couple of years ago, which I had watched before in the past, but I watched it again recently. He made that argument, and also Vadi Bachman, he has a series on Gay is the New Black that was really, really interesting. And he went through different court cases and made the case like there have been people who were gay who were obviously married and maybe they didn't come out at the time, or they still made families and had kids or whatever, but it didn't obviously discriminate against them because they got married. And so Vadi Bachman used the a comparison of like, well, if you're a pacifist and you want to join the army, but you don't want to participate in the way because you're a pacifist and they do violent stuff, you can't just change the mission or the definition of what the army does because it doesn't accommodate you. So that's how some people have explained it. So in a similar sort of sense, you know, she does supply it to stuff to everyone. There's just, if you don't want to participate in the way that she's making the stuff, then that's a different story. But again, it's not like you go to a restaurant and everyone is getting a Big Mac and you come in and you're wearing a rainbow pin and they're like, oh, nah, I don't want to do that for you because you're wearing a rainbow pin. That's not what it is. So she said she'll make websites like if you're someone who's gay and you run like an animal shelter or something and you want a website for your animal shelter, no problem. But she just doesn't want to make particular things that are contrary to her faith. And in the case, they asked like, well, would your client make a website for someone who went like two heterosexuals, but they were both married and they met each other at work, so they got divorced so they could get married? Like, is that something that I don't know why you'd have all that information on a website about a wedding, but like our love story, like in the intro, like we were unfaithful to our spouses, and they're like, no, I don't think that she would make something like that. So it has, so she doesn't want to do things that violate her conscience. So people are kind of twisting themselves, making all kinds of scenarios. So I'm going to play a little snippet. There's another snippet of Ketanji talking about Protestant provisions. I don't have that clip. You might have to just go look it up later. But this one, she makes a comparison to It's a Wonderful Life.
I'm a public business. I'm a photographer. My belief is that, I'm doing It's a Wonderful Life scenes. That's what I'm offering. Okay? I want to do video depictions of It's a Wonderful Life. And I, knowing that movie very well, I want to be authentic, and so only white children and families can be customers for that particular product. Everybody else can, I'll give to everybody else, I'll sell them anything they want, just not the It's a Wonderful Life depictions. I'm expressing something, right, for your purposes, that's speech. What about, what's the other step? It's speech, and I can say anti-discrimination laws can't make me sell the It's a Wonderful Life package to non-white individuals.
So, I just want to show this really quickly from this movie, It's a Wonderful Life, in case anyone hasn't seen it before. So, that person looks black. So, I don't know how well she knows this movie. So, I don't know how that tracks. But whatever. Whatever. So, such a silly example. Anyway, would it? How I wonder how Ketanji Brown Jackson would feel if there was a job. Let's just say it's for the position of like the Supreme Court, and someone will only nominate you for that position if you are a black woman. I wonder how she would feel about that. Do you guys feel like she would take a principled stance against discrimination or nah? How do you guys feel about that? Anyway, let's move on to MS. No, I'm sorry. This is CNN. This is CNN.
At what point can someone say, I'm an artist, and not really be one? My question really is, what is art? I mean, obviously, I'm not disparaging your art form. I had a wedding website. I understand it. It's a whole thing. I know you're an artist. But what is to distinguish you from somebody saying, well, you know what? Look, my macaroni and cheese in this restaurant is a work of art. This pie is a work of art. The way that I make my clothing in this boutique, works of art. So you know what? I don't want somebody in here who's gay, who's black, who's Jewish, who's disabled. What is the line that distinguishes, say, you from the artist that somebody could, under the auspices of saying they're an artiste, do the same thing? Do you have those concerns?
So when they answer that question, they're like, the text of the law like lays this out, like speech is like text and words and other stuff like that. It's not macaroni and cheese, okay? When you're doing this, so I've worked like doing catering kind of things. I've made mac and cheese before, and again, I've made websites before. And she claims that that she's made websites or had a wedding website, and it's a whole deal, she said. So I can just kind of say that making macaroni and cheese and just serving it isn't the same as building a custom website. And it's such a reach. It's such a reach to think that so they're trying to create this big slippery slope. So and I don't know how you get that slippery slope out of artistic expression, arguing that you can not serve black people macaroni and cheese, which I guess the thought that just came to my head is like, black people probably go somewhere else and just eat our own macaroni and cheese. So it's so stupid. It's so stupid. Like, I don't know what yours tastes like. No way. Like, you ever seen some of these wild, like, I don't know, macaroni and cheese on like a Food Network or something, and somebody puts some broccoli or whatever, and people react to it and just like trash it. Like, my mom makes the bomb macaroni and cheese, though. But there's some good macaroni and cheese in my family. But anyway, It's not the same thing as building a website, as a custom website. There's so much work that goes into when you have a client building something, custom like that, making sure that they like the color scheme, the text, how it's laid out, the how it is on the mobile version versus how it is looking at it at a desktop, if the wording is correctly, the placement, all those kinds of things. And sometimes you have people who are more laid back with what they want, and you have sometimes people who are more particular, and you have to make all sorts of different changes for folks. Most of the time when I do something, people, very very much kind of trust where I'm going with my stuff, but I've had to make a lot of adjustments for folks at different times for things, and I had to keep in constant contact, and et cetera. So there's just a lot that will go into something. But what they said in the other video, like, you don't want to open a door where you have someone who's a speech writer who doesn't want to provide their services to somebody who they disagree with, as far as policy goes. Why you don't want to coerce people or compel their speech in that sort of way. And for example, like when I first ran, I mentioned I ran against Brenda Lawrence in 2014. I went to that, maybe, and this was before I was, the same year, basically the same like election cycle. At first I was running for state rep and I lost my primary by 6 votes, and then I ran for Congress. But I went to some kind of, she runs or she leads or some kind of conference for women who want to run for elections. And I went with my sister. And so there was it was bipartisan, and there was a Black woman there. She was talking about, what she did, giving all this kind of advice and stuff. And so I talked to her afterwards, and we had a really friendly conversation. And then I mentioned that I was going to run against, I guess it would have been Grimel, who's actually my mayor now. If I had won my primary. And she's just like, why don't you just wait? He'll be termed out. And I'm like, I'm running against him. And she's like, oh, because she didn't realize I was a Republican, and she's just like, I don't work for Republicans. And you know what? That was fine. That was fine. There was no, I just like, oh, sister, I can help you out or something. Like, it was like, she has her ideology, I have my ideology, we play for different teams. That's fine. And I appreciated learning what I did in the segment that I was in, and she explained fundraising, all the other kind of stuff. I got good information from her. I didn't need to have her be my, well, she probably could help me raise money if I had hired her on, but I didn't need the government or someone to compel her to work for me. It was fine. So you don't want to get to a position where you have to compel people to do things, not just outside their faith, but just things they just vehemently don't want to do, So people are talking about discrimination, but I'm like, are we going to have like strategic tyranny? Like Jack Phillips, he's been targeted, after that the case with the cake in Colorado, people still like targeted him in court and stuff. So he was targeted again for a gender cake or something. Not a gender reveal, but like a transgender cake, because he didn't want to make a cake for that. So people do use the LGBT community strategically to bump up against religious liberties, to continue trying to dismantle the First Amendment. And I don't understand why people believe that their privilege, and they believe that the state has more right, I guess, to compel them or to coerce them into compliance, rather than someone having the liberty to be able to just freely associate, to exercise their religion or to worship or whatever. Because those are rights, your First Amendment rights. Like how people voluntarily engage and decide to do business, that's how they associate and engage. So the macaroni was silly. The Wonderful Life. Please go look up the Protestant thing, the Protestant provision thing. It was silly, but let's keep watching.
So one of the cases you mentioned involving foster care access in Philadelphia, the court was presented with a very broad argument: overrule Oregon versus Smith, which would have really undermined a longstanding precedent. In this argument, there's another broad argument presented. Effectively undermine this public accommodations requirement that says you open your doors to the public, you serve everybody. This court, in the same court, in that Philly case said, you know what? We're going to proceed cautiously here. That's what we asked this court. Proceed cautiously.
You talk about the slip. I'm shorthanded, but it's the slippery slope argument, right? If this happens, then what's the next domino to fall? There are 29 states, including Colorado, that have non-discrimination laws. What is the impact if the court sides with Smith? What is the impact for, makeup artists, hairstyle, people in this sort of, that consider themselves having expressive professions? What is the actual big implication here if this case doesn't go your way, as you see it?
Well, first off, we're going to start having to figure out where to draw that line. If someone makes specialized lattes, do they have an expressive interest in saying, I'm sorry, I don't want to serve Mormons because I don't believe in the Mormon religion? That set of hypotheticals could become reality if we lose this case.
People aren't going to serve Mormons lattes. How many wives do you have, sir? Like, who would do this? Your special non-Mormon lattes. Yeah, and that was an attorney general, sir. Special Mormon lattes. Mormons don't drink coffee. You know what? That is true. That is true. So why would they want the latte? Why would they want the latte? Do they mean if they're a Mormon they wouldn't serve the latte? So here's the White House.
Currently happening right now. And so I know the Congress is moving forward, having those discussions. I'm certainly not going to be negotiating from here, from the podium.
Thanks, Priya. Two topics, if I can. The Supreme Court heard arguments today about a graphic designer who objected to designing websites for gay couples. The justices seem to be sympathetic toward her in today's on the court today. We've heard the White House talk about the potential ripple effects after the Dobbs ruling. Do you have a comment on this specific case and any concerns from the administration about the potential wider implications of this particular case?
So I want to be very careful here. Don't want to weigh in or prejudge the Supreme Court's outcome. That's something I'm going to do here at the podium. But to your point, more broadly speaking, and we have talked about this, we recognize the right to free speech, and we support ensuring that no one is discriminated against or refused services because of who they love and who they are. And so, as you know, we've been very clear about that. The administration believes that every person, no matter their sex, race, religion, or who they love, should have the equal access to society, including access to products and services on the same terms as other members of public. Look, the Department of Justice said in its brief that for decades, non-discrimination public accommodations laws have coexisted with the First Amendment. Courts have recognized that we can require businesses open to public to service people regardless of their backgrounds, even when that means businesses must incidentally engage in speech which they disagree upon. So this is no reason to upend this balance right now, as the Department of Justice just laid out, as I just laid out what they said in their brief. But again, I don't want to weigh in. I don't want to get ahead of what the Supreme Court's decision will be on this.
And on
So she didn't actually she said we respect the First Amendment, but didn't go on to say how the administration, Biden or whoever, respects the First Amendment rights, particularly they didn't have to specifically mention her, but of religious people with different convictions in general. She didn't really say that. I mean, she went on to just talk about not discriminating against, um LGBT people, etc. But she didn't really stand up for the First Amendment. And she says there can be balance, but how there can there be balance when, again, it seems like there is like some strategic tyranny going on, and like different stuff that they've wanted to pass. Every time there's a debate about like the Quality Act, you see people concerned about how it will buck up against any sort of religious liberty, and then you'll see people on the left like, oh, you guys are so eager to discriminate, you bigots, blah blah blah, which that's a technique called jamming, by the way. It's a propaganda technique. And I'll say this again, I don't understand why you think your privilege to coerce me is more important than my First Amendment right to freely exercise my religion, freely associate, whatever. So that's the route that they want to go. As she said, it seemed like the justices were sympathetic. I think it'll have you. People are speculating that's going to be a 6-3 decision in her favor. Not sure how the ruling altogether will affect everything else, how narrow it would be because the Jack Phillips case was very narrow. People were like, I mean, I remember when it was the thing that people were waiting for, and it was very narrow. And we'll see how this goes. We'll see. I'm curious who will write it. But it'll take some time, like it took some time for the Dobbs decision and stuff to come out. But she'll probably win that case. On a side note, interesting story. This from the T-Post Millennial. Inclusive Virginia restaurant cancels Christmas party after LGBTQ staff refused to serve Christians. So, welcome to the double standard, the left, where some believe Jack Phillips must be forced to create a wedding cake as part of the celebration of same-sex ceremony, but any business should be able to deny basic goods and services to those who hold biblical values in marriage. That's a quote. Metzger Bar and Butchery, a Richmond, Virginia restaurant that says it prides itself on being an inclusive environment, recently canceled a reservation of just 90 minutes before its scheduled time for a Christian group that they say made their female and LGBTQ plus staff feel uncomfortable and unsafe. Last week, the restaurant posted an explanation to Instagram as to why they canceled the reservation. And I do have that right here. Give me 1 second. I can show you guys their statement. Very silly. Metzger Bar and Butchery has always prided itself on being an inclusive environment for people to dine in. In 8 years of service, we have very rarely refused service to anyone who wished to dine with us. Recently, we refused to service to a group that had booked an event with us after the owners of Metzger found out it was a group of donors to a political organization that seeks to deprive women and LGBTQ plus persons of their basic human rights in Virginia. And that is so annoying to me. How people, I'm assuming when they say deny women, I'm very much assuming that they're talking about abortion, which throws me through put a loop or whatever, because what about the women who are aborted in abortions? It's not just baby boys who are killed, and women are harmed by abortion, and the pro-life movement is filled with women. Just saying people want to attack women or coming against, that's just rhetoric, and it's disgusting. It's just, and that's maybe how they feel, and obviously they put it in their message, but that is their delusion. Your delusion is noted, as I often say and comment under people's posts. But to say that it's depriving women of their basic human rights, you do not have a right to kill another human being. Just like a blanket right, you don't. So I guess in some states you do, but it doesn't make sense to me why we think that it should be such a humane human right to deprive someone else of their life, particularly if it is your child. So when people use this terminology, this phrasing, it's so hysterical, so dishonest, and frankly disgusting. But let's go on. Um they said we have always refused service to anyone for making our staff uncomfortable or unsafe, and this was a driving force behind our decision. Many of our staff are women and or members of the LGBTQ plus community. All of our staff are people with rights who deserve dignity and a safe work environment. We respect our staff's established rights as humans and strive to create a work environment where they can do their jobs with dignity, comfort, and safety. So just a lot of garbage. Staff triggered and by some Christians, and they decided to not serve them. Now they I don't think they were going there to have a prayer meeting. They're they're going to celebrate and whatnot, and they canceled the booking 90 minutes before the event, and then have the audacity to say, well, we have women who work here. And some of them are probably very upset that you wanted to deprive them the right to kill their offspring. Like, it's so gross to me. That's so gross to me. If man, I wish I could be there, just be like, sir, no, you did not. Just speak on my behalf to say, but that's just really nutty to me. Really, really nutty to me. Now, that's not like again, I don't think it was a special prayer service or something like that. They wanted to come in to to eat food, something that their business does. They serve food, and so because of political things that they did outside of that restaurant, they didn't want to serve them. So it seems if you're okay with what they did, how can you not be okay? This is way worse, in my opinion, than someone who builds a custom website saying, I don't want to do that if it's a same-sex wedding. Because this is like public accommodation, is it not? So by the way, I've worked in retail and have actually felt uncomfortable by people before, and felt unsafe. Well, not maybe unsafe, but just really like there was instances where I was being hit on very aggressively, and I didn't like it, and I had to go to the back, and then they brought someone else to stop it, and they kicked the guy out of the store. So there's been instances like that where as a woman I have felt uncomfortable. So to have them use this excuse of whatever their policies or whatever they support, saying making people feel uncomfortable, it's just ridiculous. But if the employer let his staff or how he perceived his staff to feel to affect their business decision, it is what it is. The Christian group was revealed to be the Family Foundation, nonprofit faith-based organization in Virginia that advocates for policies based on biblical principles that enable families to flourish at the state and local level. In a December 1st post written by the president, Victoria Cobb, she revealed that the cancellation came just an hour and a half before people were set to arrive. Have you ever been denied a meal because of your beliefs? Cobb's post began. Last night, our team and supporters got the firsthand experience when Metzger's Bar and Butchery in Richmond, Virginia, refused to service our pre-reserved event, leaving us scrambling just moments before. Cobbs wrote that the organization had been planning a gathering for weeks to take place in one of the restaurant's private rooms. About an hour and a half before the event was set to take place, one of the restaurant's owners called our team to cancel the event. The post continued, as as our VP's operations explained that guests were arriving at the restaurant shortly, she asked for an explanation. Sure enough, an employee looked up our organization and their wait staff refused to serve us. A flyer for the event, which was set to take place on November 30th, stated that the dessert reception was being held to discuss the success of the future plans of the Family Foundation. Welcome to the 21st century, where people who likely consider themselves progressives attempt to recreate an environment from the 1950s and early 60s when people were denied food service due to their race, the post started. Cobb later added, welcome to the double standard of the left, where some believe Jack Phillips must be forced to create a wedding cake as part of their celebration of same-sex ceremony, but any business should be able to deny basic goods and services to those who hold biblical values around marriage. Cobbs explained that the Family Foundation believes that those with private businesses should not have to violate their convictions, but noted that most, if not all, faiths not only allow for the provision of services like food to those with whom they disagree, but they also encourage it. Our witness will not be diminished, and we will not be silenced. We will speak out when we see this type of religious discrimination occurring in Virginia. So they complain about the organization, but at the same time, they're like, yeah, we think you actually do have the right to do that. That's fine. I don't think they probably legally do. Like if they want to cause a big stink about it and probably sue him, I think they might have a case there. But they were like, yeah, you should, if you want to discriminate based on our beliefs and what we do outside of what we do of here when we come to eat, to gather together in a place where you're supposed to be inclusive and serve, which by the way, I wrote in an article last week, I think it was, that the coexist bumper stickers and stuff, it's a lie. Like, people don't actually believe that. That's something that it's just a slogan. It's a thing people say, but a lot of people who slap that on their cars and whatever don't actually genuinely believe that. They don't want to coexist with people they disagree with. They want you to be bludgeoned until you just accept who they are, what they believe, and you shut up and you go along with the program. Like, coexisting is, hey, we can disagree. We don't always have to chill together, but you know what? If you want to be in your corner doing your thing, and I'm gonna be over here my thing, like, we have to like mutually sometimes interact, and that's okay. But as long as you don't step on my toes and I don't step on your toes, we can coexist. Coexist does not mean we all like each other. People always say you got the right, like, love is love and we can love whoever we want. People can dislike you. People have the right to not like you either. I don't understand why people don't think that the opposite can't be true. Like, as long as we aren't violently aggressing upon each other, people should be able to decide what they want to do. So I just thought this was an interesting contrast with what's going on in the Supreme Court. And then as a customer, people discriminate all the time. Like, I don't want to support this business because their values are this or whatever. So now sometimes it's just like, dude, I don't care what you might do on your off hours. I just want a couch, or if that's what you do. But you know, some people have asked me, like, how would you feel about if this company was doing this or blah blah blah, and I'm just like, I like quit Disney like cold turkey pretty much, because I feel that the company resents me, and that's something that's very elective. It's entertainment. It's not something that's necessary that you need to survive or anything like that. So it's obviously easier than like if grocery stores started icing you out or something. But you don't have to support people or deal with people who don't like you, who don't jive with your values. And that's a decision that you can make. But if you are a business owner and you want to start icing people out, then the market will have its day. Like, people talk about Jim Crow laws and etc. A lot of stuff was the government. That was the government that did that. Back in the day, like AA Allen tent meetings and stuff, the government like made people put up ropes to segregate people when they went to church and stuff together, which they'd start shouting and dancing and those ropes would go down anyway. But it was the government that made people segregate. And when people try to have like free market solutions, think of something like, if you haven't heard of Seneca Village, it was a village in New York where there was a town where Black people could own property. They had their own church. There was like I don't know if there was an orphanage there, but they would let people come in, and it wasn't just black people. There were white people who lived there too, and the government tore it down for like to build Central Park. Like they forced the people out and built Central Park. They claim that they paid people and accommodated them to get them to leave and stuff, but that was a place where people could be freer in a society that treated black people very unfairly, where people could have their own, and the government was like, no, we need a park. So next time you go to Central Park, remember that. I guess that little bit of history right there. I've learned a bit about Seneca Village. Actually, I included in one of my books a bit about it, and it just hurt my soul. Like I was like, this is so sad, but not an isolated incident, I'm sure. So a lot of I believe that even if people decide to start going in a discriminatory sort of way, there's going to be someone that wants your money, and someone who's actually inclusive. This restaurant claimed they're inclusive. Obviously they were not inclusive, because they just wanted to be inclusive toward the people that they like, which isn't inclusive. So there's going to be someone who's just going to be like, you know what, we will take your business. And there's some people who exclusively take, not exclusively, but sometimes I'll go to a business. I'm like, oh, I'm hearing Christian music. I'm like, oh, is this a Christian business? Say, yeah. I'm like, okay. And I'll try to frequent them, and then there's, I'll be at an event somewhere and people will be like, I'm coming to the black tables. And I'm just like, I'll take your money. Like, here's a book. It'll be $15. Like, okay. if you want to give me your money, fine. Like if it was reversed and there was white people going to like white people tables and being like, I want to support the white people, like people would be cool with that. But I'm just like, I'm trying to make my table back. Sure, I'll take your money. There will be a free market solution, I'm sure. So people who are worried and talking about these slippery slopes, I'm sure there will be instances of folks saying, nah, I won't do that. But there are other options. I'm sure there's other options of people making websites. And one of the great things about the internet is that you can hire people from anywhere in the world. So just let the woman make her stuff. Let the woman make her stuff. But again, I thought this was an interesting contrast with the current story and current arguments that I've been having with people. But I am over, so I do have to go. I hope you guys enjoy the show today. Please go blacktnews.com, check out different content on my website. Check out different articles that I've written. Please check out different videos that I've had. If you like what I do, please consider leaving a donation at blacktnews.com/donate. Please go ahead and check out different merch that I have, like the I'm Not the Victim You're Looking For. The Be Better Not Better shirt. Also have different books that you guys can check out. My book website is ninjadustpublishing.com. Let me just pull up that website really quick. But if you do go to my website, blacktnews.com, you will see that there's a banner on the merchandise and it will take you to my book website. But if you just go ahead and look me up on Amazon, you'll see some of my stuff. Well, let me pull the banner down so you guys can see the title. Yeah, like I said, I do make my own book covers. I do a lot of things creatively, and I just for people to think it's the same as like making macaroni and cheese. And by the way, if you had to make particular mac and cheese for an event that you didn't want to go to or something, you had to take over. I think you should be able to pick and choose events that you cater to. Like, but if you have some kind of like open door business or something, and you know, it's not the same as having a custom website. It's just not. It's just not. But if you want to push for your right to say, hey, I just want to accept whoever I want to accept, and we go that route, I guarantee you there will be a free market solution where someone is just like, okay, if they want to discriminate against Mormons so they can't sell coffee, which that's not a good business strategy anyway. If you were going to just sell Mormons coffee or anything related to that, I guess there will be someone who will be willing to give them non-coffee options because they don't drink coffee. Anyway, God bless you guys.